Hai teman-teman, and welcome to another edition of Waktu Cerita Story Time. Today in Indonesian, I'm going to read you another Indonesian folk tale. Once again, this one originates from Bali, and I'm reading from Balinese children's favourite stories. A few words that you need to know today. The first one of these relates to your numbers. Now, I know you all know your numbers quite well in Indonesian, but let's go through these together. We're just going to count from 0, 0 to 10, 10. So we've got 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It's a good thing to know your numbers when we're retelling this particular folk tale today. The other thing that you need to know is the name of our main character. And our main character today is an ikan. Ikan means fish. Yeah? Ikan. Ikan. Ikan is fish. And these are two words that we introduced last week related to our feelings. We've got senang, happy, and sedih, sad. Senang is happy and sedih is sad. Okay, let's get on with our story today. Our story today is about tiga ikan, 3 fish, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there were 3 fish who lived happily in a lily pond next to a rice field. The pond was in a garden of a small bamboo house that was rented out to tourists who came to stay in Bali. The local people would not even dream of living next to the rice paddies, but for foreigners, they seemed to like it. In the pond, there were some beautiful pink and white lilies that bloomed at night, and the fish had plenty to eat, what with slugs and snails and other water creatures that lived there. Sometimes the guests who were in the house even fed them breadcrumbs. But one day, the most terrible thing happened. It had been very hot, and there hadn't been much hujan, rain, for months. Too panas, hot. Tidak hujan. There wasn't much rain. The water in the pond had got very low indeed. In fact, all that remained was a few inches of warm, brown, muddy water, barely enough to keep the fish alive. The fish got together and talked about what they could do. The first fish, he was the oldest, and he said he wanted to stay put. He was sure that there would be rain soon, and if not, he believed the owner of the house would see them in a terrible state and fill the pond up with water. Well, the second fish agreed, but wasn't quite as sure as the first. The third fish, who was the youngest, he had a different plan altogether. He had noticed that there was a channel running down by the side of the rice field, and there was always water there. He reasoned that if it was good enough to feed a rice crop, then it might be good enough to lead some water towards their stream or their pond. All he would have to do was take one giant leap and he would be there, and soon they would all swim to freedom. Well, the first fish thought that plan was too dangerous. That ikan was saying, "Tidak, no, I don't think so, that's not the way to go." But the second fish, he didn't agree at all either. He was thinking that it wasn't such a good idea to take the jump. The other 2 fish looked on as the third fish made the decision, and he flew up into the air, using his little fins like wings to fly through the air and towards the other side of the garden path. But then, splat, he fell flat on the ground, and he lay there in the middle of the path, gasping for air. They heard the fish cry, "Tolong! Tolong!" Tolong means help. And luckily, somebody did come by, and they did see him. They heard the voices of the tourists were coming towards them. As they walked along the path, the girl said, "Look, there's a fish out of the water. Let's see what we can do to help it." "He must have come from that pond," said the boy as he picked up the fish in his hand and gently placed the stranded fish back in the muddy brown water. "This pond looks very dry to me," he said. "Looks like it could use a refill. Let's get some buckets from the dapur, the kitchen, and we'll refill it." Much to the relief of the 3 fishes, the pond was soon full of water and life had returned to normal. Of course, the other fish could not resist giving the younger fish a bit of telling off. "You really must look before you leap," he told his young friend. You had a very narrow escape, and if the tourists hadn't have found you when they did, you might have perished." The young fish blew some bubbles from his mouth and agreed. Secretly, though, he thought he'd saved the day with his reckless jump. If the tourists hadn't found him, they would never have noticed that the pool needed filling up. Or would they? If you've got pets at home, I hope you're doing a great job looking after them. For now, I'm going to say sampai jumpa. See you later.